Hi, in this next tutorial we're going to learn how to make a custom mesh and tile it so that we can use it in any files that we're working on, no matter what size they are. So what I have here is a scan of a mesh that I found in a sample book somewhere, and I kind of like this design and I want to be able to tile this now so I can use this on some of my concepts. So I scanned it at 600 dpi, but you can do it either, something at a good quality. So around like 300 to 600 dpi is going to be a good range to be at. And I brought that into Photoshop, and that's where I'm going to be doing all of my editing for this. So with your mesh opened up here, we want to grab our rulers, and you can turn on your window with the view and click here and turn on your ruler guides. And what I'm trying to do here is I want to locate, I want to try to get this mesh to be aligned, because right now you can see if I go in the center of this shape right here, as I drag down, it's not aligned. The mesh is actually on an angle, and that's just from the way I scanned it. So if I align it to this center one here, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit Apple A to select all, and I want to rotate this, so I'm just going to hit free transform, and over here on the right I'm going to wait till my cursor changes to this shape here, and then just start turning and try to get this to align down the centers of those meshes. And as you can see, this one's going to be a tricky one because it's kind of on an angle here. So I may have to, I'm just going to hit escape and Apple D to deselect. I'm going to have to find an area where my mesh is a little more truer, because it looks like it's actually bending and curving down here. So I'm going to use the mesh on this side where it looks like it might be a little easier for me. So again, I'm going to use this guide right now and select all and rotate. Try to get this centered here. So let's see. Right now you can just see how it's really not. This mesh is actually a pretty tough mesh right now, which is good, because it'll be good for you to see. So let me go ahead and I'll try to align this, compensating almost like a 50-50. So I'm going to have this just a little bit off, and then this is going to be a little bit off. So here we're good. I'm going to use like this section in here. So I'll hit enter to turn off the rotation, and Apple D to deselect. So now I used my ruler guides. I have my alignment set up, and we want to start the offset process. And we want to find the center point for this. So you can use two ways to do this: the selection tool over here, the marquee tool, or the crop tool, this function button right here. The advantages of the selection tool is if we want to knock out some areas to show below that there's some depth to this mesh, we would do the selection tool, marquee tool, and then we would paste this onto a new layer. But for this demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and use the crop tool, because I'm not going to knock out any of these shapes here. We're just going to use the mesh as it is. So if I have a red background on my object, this is going to fill that entire shape. You're not going to be able to see any of the red through these holes. So just for this demo, I'm just going to show you that. So we're going to take the crop tool, and the more of these that you grab, the better it's going to be. So I'm just going to try to get the centers of these rings, all four corners, to be somewhat in the center, because we are tiling this and it's going to be on a grid, so we want to make sure that that's all as far as being centered and aligned properly. So I think I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to hit my enter key, and this will be cropped here. So I've eliminated all the excess material around the outer edges. I'm only going to use this. And again, the selection tool is good because you can preserve that original file and create a new layer. So regardless, now we want to find out the image size here. And we want to do this because we want to make sure our pixel dimensions are even values. And the reason why we're going to do this, I'm just going to change this to 480 and right here to 400. And the reason why is because we're going to want to divide this by 2. So we'll have a width of 240 and a height of 200. So I'm just going to write those down on a piece of paper on the side. So I'm going to write down 240 and 200. And I'm just going to go ahead and leave everything else the same. And I want to turn off the constrained proportions. Make sure that's checked off. And go ahead and hit OK. So we found out our image size. Now go under Filter, Other, and Offset. And here, this is going to determine the center point. Now as you can see, our alignment is a little off-center. You can kind of tell right here, the point's right there. So we're going to take those numbers that we just calculated, 240 by 200, and we want to make sure that wraparound is checked, and go ahead and hit OK. You can see that the center is right here, so that's good. So we now have our outside edges perfectly aligned and seamless. Now all we need to do is just correct these misaligned. Let me zoom in on this. We want to correct the misalignment now in the center. That's on the center axis. So the way we do this is with our clone tool. And I'm going to go ahead and clear the guides right now because they're bothering me. So under View, Clear Guides, get rid of those guides. So with our clone tool, that's how we're going to get rid of this shape here. And what we're going to try to do is get our this shape here. You can kind of tell it's pretty out of whack here. So let's try to fix that. So with my clone tool, if I hit Option, hold it down, and click, I've just selected this area. Now I'm going to clone. I'm going to clone that area. And this takes a little bit of practice. You're going to have to kind of fine-tune what you're trying to achieve here, but with a little bit of practice, you can get rid of all these shapes. So I keep clicking the clone tool, and you can see as I'm cloning, it's capturing that area that I've clicked in. So just going to keep on fixing these shapes here. So this takes a little bit of practice, but once you learn how to do this, it's actually pretty simple. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to kind of clone this purple area, and then I'm just getting rid of these imperfections. So you can kind of see like this, these are starting to shape up pretty nicely. There's still a lot of work to do over here. And depending on what material you select at the beginning, you know, if you have a good image and you make sure you align it properly on your scanner, you'll actually come out with a pretty good form. It doesn't need too much alterations. So just a lot of clicking. Just trying to get these to align. So I'm kind of trying to find a similar area to where I'm going to clone, just to get that to look a little more natural. Like I said, depending on what file you start out with, it's going to make life a lot easier if you have a better scanned image, but I'm kind of glad that this one isn't as perfect as I would have liked, just so you can see how I need to go through this and kind of fix it pretty heavily. Not a great image. So there you go. Kind of hidden those seams. If you step back and take a look, it's going to be kind of hard to find that seam in the center there. So I think we've been able to knock that out. I think we're good. So now that the clone tool is complete, we've cleared our guides, the next step is to define our pattern. So the way we do that is under Edit, you go down to Define Pattern, And let's name this just mesh test, and we'll hit OK. So we've defined our pattern. Now we want to test the tile effect and then the alignment. So we'll go under a new document, so File, New, and we want to make this one larger. So I'm just going to go under inches. You can see this was a pretty small file. Let's go ahead and make this just a 5" by 5", and let's just drop down a resolution and hit OK. So now we have a large file here, and we want to fill this. So under Edit, you go to Fill, and here under Contents, let's use our pattern. You can fill it with a foreground color, whatever you have selected over here, background, or pick a color, but we want to fill it with the pattern. And under Custom Pattern, the one that we just defined, you'll see that that pops up right here, the latest one. So I'm going to hit out of that, and we're going to use normal setting and 100% opacity. And we'll go ahead and hit OK. This fills that pattern, this file, with the whole entire file gets filled with this mesh. And as you can see, you can't see any seams in this. And that's because we used that clone tool and we really worked hard at eliminating those lines, those inaccuracies. So this was just a test. So let's close out of that. We won't save it. So we know our files is great. So we want to take this and we want to select all. And we want to test this in Illustrator, and I'll show you why in a second. So select all, and then hit, you want to copy this. So under Edit, Copy. So you've just copied this selection. Now let's go into Illustrator, and I've opened a document here. In Illustrator, let's paste that. So we'll go to Object. We'll hit our Apple V, and that'll paste our selection from Photoshop. So here's its actual size, and this is our file here. So now to be able to use this in Illustrator, under our swatches, let's take that, drag it over, and you could just see it created a new pattern under swatches. Now what this allows us to do is, I'm going to take my shape tool here, this rectangular square tool, and I'm going to make a shape. It's a simple shape. Now you can see it filled it with this pattern here that I've already had selected. So we're going to make sure our fill is selected here and click on that once. And there you go. It's using the size that we've had here that we imported it in, and it's creating that. Now, what if we want to change this and make it bigger? Press the S button for scale, and then hold down the serif tool on the top left of your keyboard. It's the little squiggly shape. By holding that down, you're going to preserve your rectangle shape, and I'm going to hold Shift because I want this to scale proportionally. So with both of those keys held down at the same time, I'm going to click and I'm going to drag, and you see the box getting larger, but it's keeping the original rectangular shape preserved. And if you click again, click and drag a couple of times, I'm still holding down the Shift and Serif tool. You can see now my image is a lot bigger. You can also rotate by pressing the R key for rotate, and then the Serif tool as well. And then just click and drag, and you can put it on any angle that you like. Now, what if you want to create your own shape? The selection is filled here. Your fill tool has the pattern in it. I'm just going to start drawing a shape. There you go, we have a shape. It uses the angle that we've already had set up here, and we can do the same thing. We can rotate, and we can scale S, serif, and shift. I'm going to scale this down. Now if you click scale and just hold your serif tool, you can scale this unproportionally without your proportions um, expanding horizontally and vertically at the same time. You can just expand them out, elongate it down the y-axis. Just going to undo here, or you can scale it on your x-axis. So it depends on what kind of effect you want, but you can really play around with your mesh shapes now in Illustrator. And if you want to have a shape that I'm going to fill with red, I'm going to send that to the back, and with my selection tool, I'm going to select this shape here, and if you hit multiply, you'll be able to change your color quickly here in Illustrator, but you don't really want to do that here. You want to go back into Photoshop and with your hue saturations and things like that, play around with changing the colors. I'm going to show you how to do that in another tutorial. So that's it for this tutorial on creating a seamless tiled pattern using a swatch that you've scanned in. And you can apply this same process to synthetic materials, webbing materials, glass effects, anything that you have, you can create tiles in this way. So thanks for watching this tutorial, and I hope you take a look at some of the other ones.